So I'm not a doctor, so this isn't a medical advice, but it's just my opinion that if you suddenly come to consciousness in the pouring rain thinking that you're being chased by the FBI, it's time to change your medication. So it's the early 2000s, and my doctor is putting me on this new HIV medication. It's 1 pill instead of 3. It doesn't have as many side effects, and you don't have to take it multiple times a day. And he said the only thing that people have complained about is vivid dreams. I said to him that that's something that really concerned me because I used to have sleepwalking and night terrors. Now, if you don't know, night terrors are those dreams that adolescents get where your body just moves along, and sometimes you wake up screaming, sometimes you run. I chose to do both. I would bolt out of bed, run down the stairs and out the door screaming my head off. And this was in the early 80s, so you imagine like a thinner 16-year-old me in tidy whities and a Frankie Say Relax t-shirt could be like, ah, down the street. Now, don't picture me doing that now because nobody wants to see that. So that would happen until my dad would catch me. And I started when I was about 13, but by the time I was 16, I was bigger than him. And I stopped running and screaming the time that he grabbed me at the top of the stairs, and I threw him down the stairs. And then his screaming woke me up. It was ironic. So my brain developed this new strategy, which was to be calm and cool and collected and just walk slowly so that the shadow monsters wouldn't get me, which was extremely creepy to the neighbors because I would get out of the house more regularly that way. So anyway, I told my doctor about this, and he said, no problem, we can put you on a sleep medication so that you'll stay asleep. And I said, that sounds good. And he said, if the dreams bother you, we can always try to change medication. But with HIV medication, it's a little bit difficult because you can develop something called resistance. So you don't want to change too often. So back to this street in Boston, I think it's Boston. It's pouring rain, and my shoes, I'm wearing white sneakers, and there's blood just pouring out of them, and my feet hurt so badly because apparently I have been walking for hours and hours, and I'm looking and there's cars going by very, very slowly, or maybe not, and there are people who are staring at me, but they're not staring at me, but maybe they're staring at me, and all I keep thinking is, just don't let them know because they'll grab you and you'll be caught and they're gonna take you away. And I said, this is terrible. What have I done? I don't know what I did and what's going on. And as I'm thinking that, I'm like, this is just like those night terrors that I used to have when I was a kid. And that is the thought that catches in my brain after a while. And by after a while, I mean after like 20 minutes of continuously walking block after block, making sure to go over the crosswalks and just not look natural. I was soaked through to the skin and my shoes were bleeding, but I was cool. I was looking really natural. So eventually my brain says, there's something wrong. There's something that's really going wrong right now. And so I pull myself out, like grabbing a rope and pulling myself out of my own consciousness. And I finally called a friend who luckily she had some mental illness in her family. Not luckily, she didn't luckily have mental illness in her family. But luckily, she knew what to do if somebody was having some sort of mental illness problem. And I said, I don't know what's happening, but can you pick me up and take me to my mom's house? And I went to my mom's house. And when I took off my shoes and my socks, have you ever heard of those families who they take their dog on vacation and they clip them to the car and they follow after them for miles and miles in the bottoms of their... That's what my feet looked like. And I couldn't walk for 2 full weeks after that. Now, when I went back to my doctor, I told him about this, and he said, that couldn't happen with this medication. It was just too mild. The dreaming, it only happens when you're dreaming, and you had been on it for a few weeks, and so maybe you should talk to your therapist about it. Maybe there's some sort of mental illness issue. And I carried that with me for many years, and I switched doctors a couple of years ago. My current doctor retired. Now, we did take me off the medications and put me on something different because I insisted on it, but other than that, we never spoke about it again. And I went to the Fenway this time, which, if you don't know, it's a clinic that deals just with HIV. not just with, but mainly it was built to start with HIV. And my new doctor is very young. She's much younger than me. She's very curious. She asks a lot of questions. She's very open-minded. And she said, I noticed that you switched from this one medication back to 3 medications. Why'd you do that? And I said, well, I had this weird idea that I had this mental break, and I went walkabout for a while. And my doctor didn't think that was what happened. She said, oh, no, no, no. We had plenty of patients that something like that happened to them. And I just broke down. I was crying my eyes out because I had thought that I had lost my mind and it could happen to me any other time. And she said, so you said you were on 2 medications. What was the other one? And I told her the sleep aid. And she said, well, don't you remember there were some stories that came out in the early 2000s about people who would like eat everything in the fridge and cut off their own hair and maybe date other people while they were on that sleep medication? I was like, oh, yeah. I remember that now. So what I just want you to remember is that you can always trust your gut, even if you're in an active delusion, and that you should always advocate for yourself, even if you think that you're out of your mind. Thank you very much.